No, we're not on the. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yom Tov. Yes, precisely. We're about 2/3 of the way down. It's about 15 lines from the end of the Omud. The first word on the line is Yeshuasi. We're up to Hu Haya Omer, I believe. That's where you got up to. Is that correct? I think that's where we stopped. Anyone else? Any other takers? I think that's where we are. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. We're in the middle of the Agadah, which we should finish probably next week. I imagine it's quite a lengthy Agadah, but there's some fascinating pieces in this Agadah about this Agadah about tzedakah in general. Hu Haya Omer. It's another statement of Yehuda. And we'll just go back one line then just to start the Brisa. Tanya, the Brisa of Rabbi Birnbaum says, so Rabbi Birnbaum says that tzedakah is great, it draws near the geula, the redemption. God mishpat tzedakah and do tzedakah, because my Yeshua is close to come, and my tzedakah to be revealed. So therefore you see that the importance of tzedakah and how it actually has a connection to the geula itself. Now, the Gemora carries on with a very cryptic, if you like, a cryptic piece from Rabbi Yehuda. Hu Haya Omer. He also would say, Asara devarim kashim nivru ba'olam. There were 10 hard things, tough things which are created in the world. Har kosher, if you have a difficult and tough mountain, barzel l'chatcho, you can cut it with iron if the iron is strong enough. Barzel kosher, if you have tough iron, then eish mefafeo, then eish, fire, can be mefafeo. Rashi says mefafeo means merachach, softens it, even if you get if the heat it gets hot enough. Or kosher, if you have a strong fire, mayim chabenuso, even so water can extinguish it. Mayim kashim, if you have harsh water, avim sovlo, the clouds can still absorb them. Sovlo son, the clouds can absorb the water. Avim kashim, if you have harsh clouds, ruach mafazroson, the wind or air can scatter them. Ruach kosher, if you have harsh wind, guf sovlo, the body can absorb it because the body it's itself full of air. And guf kosher, the harsh physical person, it doesn't matter how strong the person is, pachat shovro, fear can break the person. Nothing has changed in that regard. Pachat kosher, and if you have pachat kosher, something which is a strong fear, yain mefigo, yain wine can actually remove or like absorb and take away the fear. The drowning in alcohol has also not changed. Yain kosher, if you have harsh wine, then sleep can reduce the effects and remove the effects of wine. I saw, actually, just came to mind, my son was reading this a remarkable actually biography of Rabbi Yashiv, and I saw that this incredible story. Somebody put these little things in. Someone came to ask him a shaila on Rosh Hashanah. This is directly on these words in the Gemora. I mean, he doesn't quote these words, but it's the same idea. Someone came to ask him a shaila on Rosh Hashanah morning. That's right, Rosh Hashanah morning. I think just before Tkir showed something in his shul, and he said, "I can answer your shaila, but I have to go home first." And he went home for 25 minutes. And then the whole shul is waiting. And they can't imagine. They can't wait. They come back, and he comes back and he answers the shaila. And they asked him, well, someone else, why did you have to go for 25 minutes? And he said, the shaila was relatively straightforward, but I'd had kiddush and I'd had a revius of wine. And the halacha is you're not allowed to paskin. Shasa yain al yora. You drank on a revius of wine, you're not allowed to paskin. So I had to go home and sleep for 20 minutes, and then I could answer the shaila. I thought it was Rabbi Yashiv, so the shul probably had understanding. But anyway, this is I actually exactly, absolutely. They're on a Kohen, the same thing with the exact.
You could talk to her and learn to her.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Not to pass them. Precisely. Exactly. Omisa kosher mikulam. Then the Gemara says omisa kosher mikulam. Some have the gears of the Bach changes to mishena. That death is harsher than sleep itself. And then the final line, the punchline, if you like, tzedakah matzeles min hamisa, and charity saves from death. Tzedakah matzeles. The pasuk says, tzedakah tatzim l'mov, is very famous pasuk in Mishlei, that tzedakah itself saves from death. This is one Rashi haguf sovloi. We did the other one before. Kol haguf mali ruach. The whole body is full of air. Now the Maharal here explains what's really going on here. He says you have 10 levels. you have 10 levels here, he says. He says, he says all of the nine things mentioned here are all natural. They're all normal nature of the world, the way things are. People, iron, fire, they're all part of the normal cycle of the world. Avalat tzedakah, says the Maharal, Ma'aseh Eloki bilti tivi. It is something above nature. V'hi kodesh Hashem yisparach. Everything about tzedakah is something unnatural, right? Even the very nature of the mitzvah. We've spoken about this before, right? It's not, is it a chiyuv? What is the chiyuv? Is there an obligation? The whole thing itself, we translate as charity. It's a charitable act. It's something which goes above and beyond. There is an obligation, but how exactly to define that is not simple. And therefore he says that tzedakah nullifies misa, okay? Because he says that misa, death, is the greatest manifestation of the physical world, right? It's the greatest manifestation. It's the greatest certainty, right? The fact that all things in this world reach an end point. That's what it is, right? And therefore, he says, it can nullify death. He says, even though death ends everything in this world, that's what it does. But it's all that's all about remaining in this world. That is the nature of how it ends things in this world. Death ends everything in this world because it is the most powerful manifestation of Olam Hazeh, this one. That's what, right? The fact that everything is terminal in this world. But he says tzedakah is entirely separate and removed from this world. So really, I think what the Maharal is saying here is the fact that the real power of this idea in the Gemora is the fact that the only things which outlast death is an action like tzedakah, right? The demaisim tovim that a person does, they are infinite as opposed to being finite. That's the point that's being expressed, I think. Toras Rabbi Birnbaum expounded the measure of flesh and blood is not the measure of Hashem is not like the measure of flesh and blood. Ordinary people bring a gift to a king. To doubt, maybe he'll accept it, maybe he won't. And if you're going to say that he's going to accept it, it's a doubt whether he's going to see the face of the king or whether he won't. Maybe he'll get to see the king, maybe he'll have an audience, maybe he won't. But Hashem is not like this. A person gives a coin to a pauper, he is able to receive the divine presence. I with righteousness will see your face. I will be sated, I think, when I awaken with your image, in the sense that Rashi says, "V'ani b'tzedek b'tchila," first tzedakah, right, righteousness, and then I can approach you in tefillah. Sorry, that's the next bit. Apologies, Rashi's going on the next bit. Rashi says, Rashi going on the next line. Sorry, the first bit is saying that first a person should a person gives a prutza to an oni, and that enables him to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, right? Rabbi Loza yoav prutza la'oni. Rabbi Loza effectively this had almost found an expression in practical halacha. Rabbi Loza yoav prutza la'oni. Rabbi Loza would give a coin to an oni, to a pauper, and then he would then daven. Omar, he said, Kesiv, ani b'tzedek echazeh fonecha. He said, the pasuk says, I with righteousness, echazeh fonecha, I will see your face. I will see your face. It's actually brought down in halacha. Tzaddik base. I don't know whether some people, I think many people do. Some people do this. They give tzedakah before. Some people do it during Baruch David, right? I think no, as well, right? Tzaddik base. That's right. That's right.
Three coins.
Is it 3 coins? Is that what?
Three coins. One and then two. One and then two.
When's the one?
You give one and then another two. You just.
Oh, at the same time.
Yeah, there's some. I'll pick Kabbalah, the one and then the two, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. So it's interesting because the Shulchan Aruch here says in Sadi Beis, Simon Sadi Beis Sif Yud, says Tov Litain Stocker Kodem Tefillah, and that's from this Gemora. He says it's good to give tzedakah before tefillah. I mean, that's the same. You are before tefillah. If I Baruch David, you're before tefillah. I mean, you're doing Pesukei Dezimra. That's before, the main part of tefillah. Mishnah Berurah brings here, and then he says, Right. Then he brings the author. He says in some kilos kadoshos nitkan hamina, the minhag was instituted. Litain stokah k'shemagel apostle v'ha'osher. They instituted the minhag to give stokah at those words of ha'osher. That's what he quotes. Right. Exactly that point. He says those who go around collecting for stokah, to collect stokah during Kriyas Torah is not right. Why? Let's stop people listening to laning and hearing and answering Baruch Hu. So that's not correct. So there you are. So that's brought down. This Gemora is brought down. It's brought down there in Halach. It's brought down as Tov, let's say.
Interestingly, that's according to some person the reason why we stand at Vayivorach David. It is out of respect for those going to give stokah.
Really, that's very interesting.
And amongst the Sfardim, you then sit down after that point.
They sit down for the Shira?
No.
Or for the whole, after V'atom Moshe Bako, you sit down?
Yeah. But at the end of that paragraph. But you don't, Sfardim don't necessarily stand up for the rest and for the rest of Oz Yoshid.
That's when you sit down. Oh, very interesting. I remember once seeing a Rav, Shul used to davening quite a lot in Ramat HaShkol. We lived in Yerushalayim. A very choshev Talmid Chacham who was the Rav of the Shul, and he used to always say aloud, very slowly and very carefully, those three words. V'ato. You sit down there. Where? Right. Those three words. Right. V'ato Moshel Bakol. And I remember it made a very big impression on me because I found it like it was a very powerful thing. He said every single morning. He said those words. He used those two words very slowly and loudly. V'ato Moshel Bakol. Apart from the meaning, think what those words mean. You're in control. But also because I think it's a very powerful thing in terms of tefillah in general. Because Pesukah we say every single day, and we're often in a rush as well, it's actually quite a powerful way of making it meaningful in the sense of just taking three words every day and saying those three words slowly. I remember it was a very, it was a very, very powerful thing. And if you're going to take three words, those three words sound very, sound like a good choice, if I can say so. Anyway, so there you are. So you stand there, and then you sit down. It doesn't tell you when to sit. It says Yam Yom Kavana. Pardon? It doesn't tell you where you sit down because we stand. Ad Kan Omad. I see. Atov Hashem Elokim. Why there? Asher B'chartu B'Avram. That's interesting.
That's the end of the kettle. That's the end of the paragraph.
Three coins.
What? No, after three words. Atov Hashem Elokim, and then Asher B'chartu. It says after Asher B'chartu. Before Asher B'chartu, you sit down. That's what he says.
Presumably, because that's when people have been able to get back to their seats by then.
Okay, right. Well, homework, all right. Right, okay, there you are. Anyway, okay, fine. So, my espa, the Gemara carries on. My espa hoketz t'mosecha. What does it mean? I will sate when I awaken t'mosecha, your image. Amar Rav Mitzvah ilu t'midei chachomim. Rav Nachman says this refers to Talmidei Chachomim shemenadidin sheina beinei b'olam hazeh. They remove sleep from their eyes in this world. Because Baruch Hu must be on. Hashem sates them, gives them from the splendor of the Shechina in the world to come. In the world to come, this idea of removing sleep. There's another little piece here in the Maharal on this as well. The Maharal says that again, it's a similar theme to before. Sleeping is entirely physical. Personally, in a sense, is not connected to the spiritual ideals when one is asleep, right? The nefesh isn't functioning in that way as such. I mean, you could argue dreams and things like that, whatever, how you understand dreams, but either way, at least on a superficial level, certainly, it's all the guf, right? There's no nefesh there operating. So someone who removes that entirely by staying awake for the right purposes to learn or whatever, is that person is doing the complete opposite. He's actually demonstrating that the spiritual side of the person is in greater control, and that's why he merits the divine presence, this experiencing the ziv hashchina, the glory of the Shechina Elohim Haba. There's just two small Rashis on this. Vani B'Tzedek, I will B'Tchila first with Tzedakah, Achar Hechas Apanach B'Tfilah, and they will see your face in Tfilah. V'Vagis T'Monosecha, B'Skar Kitza, T'Monosecha, in the reward of awakening, I will be sated with your image. Omer Rabbi Birnbaum says, Ma'idich Siv. We're just 4.5 lines out from the end of the Omer. Ma'idich Siv. What does it mean? It says in the Pasuk, Malva Hashem Chonein Dal. Someone who favors the poor. Is as if they are lending money to Hashem. And Rabbi Birnbaum said, if not for the fact that the Pasuk had written it, It would be impossible to say this. It's as if expressing the idea, so to speak, that we say the borrower is the servant, right, to the lender, and it's like lending money to by looking after the poor. It's almost like you're lending money to Hashem. So, quote unquote, Hashem is sort of like owing you in that sense, right? Which is a remarkable thing. And Rashi explains on this, somebody who favors the poor, and lends Hashem to speak, and it says the lover, the borrower, is a servant as such to the ish malva, to the one who lends. Omar Rabbi says Rabbi Yochanan Rami, or Rabbi Yochanan, some changes to Rabbi Yochanan, or Rabbi Yochanan, okay. Because one pasuk says, Lo yoel hoin b'yom evra, the wealth will not help on the day of anger, but stoka tatzil mimoves, and stoka saves from death. Another pasuk says, also in Mishlei, Lo yeilu otzros rasha, the storehouses of the Rasha will not help, but stoka tatzil mimoves, and stoka saves from death. State stokas alalu lama. Right? What are these two tzedakos? What is you have this repetition twice of the idea of stoka tatzil mimoves. Achas says the one is it saves from an unusual death, but achas, and the other one shematzilosim medina shel Gehinnom, saves from the din of the judgment of Gehinnom. Now, which one is which? Ve'ezo hi shematzilosim medina shel Gehinnom. Which is the one that saves him from the judgment of Gehinnom? That's the one that refers to Evra. The pasuk says Yom Evra Hayom Hahu. It says the pasuk in Safanya that says that day, referring to the future day of judgment, is called the day of Evra. Evra literally means sort of anger, but it's referring to Gehinnom. So that is what that pasuk is referring to. And what is the type of stocker? This means the type of stocker that saves a person from misom ashuna, from unusual death. This is the following type of stocker. No snob, the no snob. Person who gives stocker and doesn't know to whom he's giving the stocker to. Noika, the yodea miminoika. Or a person who takes stocker and doesn't know from whom he's taking the stocker. No snob, somebody who gives it and doesn't know he's giving it to la fucking with the mar ukfa. That comes to exclude the case of Mar Ukfa. Rashi explains that it's a Gemora in Ksubas. Mar Ukfa used to basically put it privately in the door, in the letterbox, or in the doorway, or whatever it was, of a poor person, and therefore he knew who he was giving it to, but the recipient did not know where it was coming from. Right? So the better way is that you don't know who you're giving it to. He takes it, doesn't know from whom he's taking it. La fucking with the Rabbi Abba. That comes to exclude Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba, what he used to do was he used to sort of throw money behind him, and the pauper used to pick it up. The Oni would pick it up. So the Oni knew who he was receiving it from, but he didn't know who he was giving it to. So again, we're coming to exclude that as well, because the best is if the Oni doesn't know he's receiving it from either. Okay? What should he do? What is the best way of doing it? Best way of giving stocker, this ideal form of stocker that we're saying saves a person from a miso mashuna, from an unusual death. This is to give to la'arna kishat stocker, the person stocker, the stocker box, whatever it is that there, you see, you don't know who you're giving it to, and the recipient doesn't know where it's coming from, doesn't know specifically who's given the money, and that's the best way, says the Gemara, of giving stocker. Now, there is let's just see Rashi on this. There's a few important points to bring out here. Rashi, the last Rashi on the previous Omud. What this one is talking about, the judgment of Gehinnom. The one that says the wealth will not help on the day of wrath or anger. That's referring to Gehinnom. Rashi says, top of the next Omud, no stop any delemi, no stop could have assigned a sefe, as it finishes off at the end. You should give it to the kiss, the bag, or whatever it is of the gabait stock. Now the Rashi brings these more. Subas Ravukfa Rabbi Meseches Subas Marukfa how Shodig Ani of the Shavusei Kolima Arbozuzi B'Sinner the Dasha. Marukfa would go and he would give it to the local poor people every day. He would give him a poor person, whatever, 4 zuz, but Sinura the Dasha, which I think is like the what is that, the pivot of the door. It's the place where the door opens. He would slip it in there. The Oni didn't know who was giving it, but he knew who was giving it to. Rabbi Abba, the story of Rabbi Abba was Havatzaya b'Sudrei. He would wrap it in a cloth or whatever. The Shadi la'achorei, and he would throw it behind him. Mamsi nafshi lebeni aniyei, and he would make himself go amongst poor people. For ha'ani notla, the ani would take it with them. He saw him throw it. He knew he was taking it from. But Rabbi Abba did not know whom he was giving it. Who he was giving it to. Who was giving it to.
There's no risk there. You might be giving it to the wrong person.
Yeah. I think it's because he used to specifically position himself where he knew there were poor people. So he would go to the poor part of town, for example, right? He didn't know who specifically would end up with it, right? There are many cases there are a number of stories in the Gemora about the optimum ways of doing tzedakah, and this is expressed, and this is what the Gemara is expressing here, right? There is a basic question in this Gemara which Tosfos asks. If you look, there's one Tosfos in the previous Talmud. Yeah, and it's a very important question. Tosfos says, "Vim Toimar," right? Is that one Tosfos on Yudam Daled? Other Rabbi says, "Zoshi mitzvah Rabba." What have we defined here, right? We've defined the greatest form of tzedakah, right? We're saying is where you don't know who you're giving it to, and the person doesn't know who he's getting it from. So he's therefore Zoshi mitzvah Rabba. That's the one that should save from Gehinnom. Shahu Rabbi Yosef. That's the worst thing. We're saying, well, there are two psukim here. Tzedakah tatzil mimovis. Tzedakah saves from death, right? You'd expect that the one which would save, one refers to Gehenna, one refers to Nisa Mashuna, an unpleasant end. Which is worse? You want to be safe from Gehenna for sure, right? So that should be the highest form of tzedakah. Why is that one the one which saves from an unpleasant end and not the one that saves from Gehenna? Right? You get the question. So it says Tosfos, V'omeri. This is very fascinating, like hashkafically, as Tosfos answered. Derov dvorim ein omdin la'adam b'olam hazeh ela la'achamisa. Most things that one does, most good deeds, most mitzvahs that a person does, the schar applies after death. What can stand in a person's stead in this world are the biggest mitzvahs, the mitzvahs gedolos. As we say, the Kedistan, we're familiar with this every morning. Why do we specify those things? Because these are the big things. These are the special things that you can actually, the principal reward is in the Olam Haba, but you can actually gain the side effects in this world. That's why the Gemara is saying, even from an unusual death, which is still part of this world, is such a form of tzedakah can save. So now it makes sense, right? This is the highest form of tzedakah. I always said if it's the highest form of tzedakah, then really that should be that should be saved from to save from Gehenna. No, on the contrary, because it's the highest form of tzedakah, right? That's why it can be operative, even in helping a person in this world. Yeah.
Why the highest one is
the highest form is to say the Gehenna is worse. But the point is that we have a concept which is basically what Toras Chaim, which is schar mitzvah b'haya al malika. Generally speaking, there is no reward for mitzvahs in this world. Why? Because this world cannot contain the reward for mitzvahs. It just doesn't have anything in it, right? But there are benefits to certain mitzvahs, gedolos, great mitzvahs, which you even get benefit from in this world. And that's what the Gemara is saying. That highest form of tzedakah can protect a person from misa mashuna, from an unpleasant. Lo aleinu, you should never have to go to a levaya, but if you ever seen Eretz Yisrael, they go around with the tzedakah and someone's calling out tzedakah tats and mimovis. You ever seen that? There's someone going around with a tzedakah box. You don't see it here, right? Do you see it a little bit here as well?
Chavik, you do it here.
They do it here as well?
Yeah.
There you
go. Certainly the other camera.
Yeah. Right. There's right. Yeah, there's unusual. In Eretz Yisrael, they have all sorts of unusual minhagim. They have the pach nishpa. You see, that's only in Eretz Yisrael. The pach nishpa manachnu limnotnu. That's in Eretz Yisrael. They have a piece of pottery, and as they're leaving the thing, they smash it on the floor, and they say the posek. The jar is broken, but we escape, which is the posek. Anyway, right. Any simchus. Let's carry on. So there we are. So there's another problem here. There's another problem here, and that is, what is the highest form of tzedakah? Let me ask you that question.
Giving someone the wage.
Giving someone a job, was that?
All the minibus is throwing it and they've got to pick it up off the floor.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. These were non-perfect in that sense.
Yeah.
Presumably that was the only way you could do it. There was the only way it was, to throw it or whatever. But you're right. In a sense, But that's a very good point in the sense that the whole problem, the fundamental problem with tzedakah itself is this concern of that it demeans the recipient. That's the problem. That is the basic issue. But someone mentioned what the highest form of tzedakah is. What? To give someone a job, right? So here we seem to be saying as if no, this is the highest form. If you don't know who's getting it, and you don't, and the giver and the recipient don't know each other, that's the highest form of tzedakah. But we know that really the highest form is to actually give someone in employment. So how do we reconcile this?
Can you really classify that as tzedakah?
That's the question. Yeah. Can you reconcile it? Martin, is it? So in Shulchan Aruch says like this. This is in Rish Mem Tes Sif Vov. He says, I think he's quoting the Rambam. 1 second. It's in the Rambam. Yeah. Shmoina malas yesh b'tzedakah, zula malam mizu. Right? There are 8 levels of tzedakah, each one above the other. Maila hagedola she'ein lamalam mimeno. The highest level is hamachzik yad Yisrael hamoch. Someone who supports a Jew who has fallen onto hard times. The nosin matona gives him a gift, a halvar or loan, or is a shutfus, goes to business partnership with him. O mamsilo melocho finds him work to strengthen him, so he shouldn't have to be in a position before he falls. That's the point, right? To be there before the person falls. He doesn't have to ask. And on that it says, we shall strengthen him. And then Siv Zayin, Pochos Mizer, less than this, I'm noticing Stokala Oni, right? He doesn't know who he's getting from. Then you go on to the next step that we're on here. So in this I've got the safe called Stockholm Mishpat, which brings lots of Hilchot Stockholm. And he brings here in the notes on this halacha. This is written by someone called Yaakov Yishaya Bloy, who was a Rav in Yerushalayim. And he says that the Prisha says that the ones included in the highest level, okay, they're not included in tzedakah, but adifim in tzedakah. They're higher than tzedakah. But from the Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't look like that. It looks like they list them in the milas of tzedakah. It says Shmona milas yesh b'tzedakah, and the highest one is this. But it's just interesting because it's interesting because this Gemora would kind of, I think, support the Prisha a little bit. Meaning the Gemara is looking, right, for tzedakah tatzam imovis, right? And what does it say? The example of the highest form of tzedakah that can save even from an unpleasant death, which is the highest one the Gemara finds, right? He doesn't say this, but it's just a kind of, is this one about where you don't know who is who? It's kind of a proof, a little bit, to support the idea that the first level is not really tzedakah. It's like above and beyond. It's very contradictory.
When that going line, people from Mars where it says that chesed is greater than stuff.
So that's interesting. We mentioned that as well. I think we might have mentioned it a little bit, and we're definitely going to come to it. So later on in this comment,
where it lists all the various things that stuff is only money.
Yeah.
Chesed, like actually food and various other things.
Yeah, chesed. Well, there's a question whether tzedakah is necessarily only. I don't know if tzedakah is only money.
There's more levels that you can do with the chesed aspect, which is above and beyond.
And also, I think chesed is something you can do with yourself rather than.
It's like chesed you can do when they're alive or dead, and it goes
right.
It goes through.
Right. Where's that Gemara? Where it is? Anyway, yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Well, either way here. Yeah. Either way, we're going to see in the Gemara later on. The Gemara is going to spend a bit of time going through the pasuk which says Mika and it talks about tzedakah tromim goy v'chesed lo mim chatos. So we talk about tzedakah and chesed. What the difference is between tzedakah and chesed? See, the problem with saying that highest level of giving, let's say giving a person work, right? The problem of calling it tzedakah, the question is that you're changing a little bit the definition of tzedakah, because you can then say that tzedakah includes when you don't lose anything. Usually you'd think that tzedakah means there has to be like a financial loss to me, which I've given to someone else, if that makes sense, which doesn't necessarily need to be the case.
It depends if you need someone to do that job. I mean, there's different
right, so you can measure in a different way. you couldn't even make money from the person. If you employ somebody who does really well,
So that's what
you've actually made money from the tzedakah.
Yeah, but my point is saying that if you know never someone needs a job, but you don't actually need to hire them, but you do.
Right. So that's isn't that
And they don't make you anything. They do something which is
right,
not necessary.
Right. Right.
That would be tzedakah.
Yes, absolutely. And then technically you've lost out really because you're then paying money to them to give them a job.
If you hire someone and they do well for you.
Yeah, it could be.
So that's just showing you the return of tzedakah in the real proper way.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. It says. Yeah. And he questions here about whether or not it's a point to the priest, whether that's considered tzedakah if you just give it as a gift, because whether it's considered to be giving, if that's called tzedakah, if they're not giving, but if it's considered tzedakah, he talks about it here at the thing. Okay.
Isn't there a minor between the giver and the receiver? So,
meaning
when you find someone a job, it's the highest mind of the receiver. But when you're giving, assuming, and specifically we're talking about, clearly talking about oysters and Mars, this is the highest way of giving of money.
So the highest.
And actually giving of yourself. For example, when I'm finding someone a job, I'm not necessarily giving anything of myself. Right. So when I'm giving someone money that I've earned from my day job, then I'm actually giving something that I could have otherwise used.
Yes.
Therefore, as a giver, that's my highest form.
Yes.
As a receiver, getting a job is my highest.
That's interesting, right? So when it talks about the Shmona Milas, you're saying, I'll just repeat for the benefit of the tape, as they say, right? The eight, Martin's suggesting that when we talk about the 8 Milas of tzedakah, the levels of tzedakah, we're looking at it from the perspective of the recipient, and for the recipient, without question, the highest and greatest form is to be supported with dignity, which is giving the person a job or whatever it is. Right? That's very good. Yes, that's right. We'll second that. Yeah. Okay, right. So the Gemara carries on. And was a question from a brisa that is it so simple? Basically, one's question is going to be: is it so simple to say you give to the Arnaki shall stop you, but you give to tzedakah, and that itself is considered to be considered to be good enough. What should the person do? He wants to have male children. Three different opinions. He should give money to poor people. Rabbi Shua scatter literally for his money to poor people. Rabbi Shua says he should make his wife rejoice before intimacy. Rabbi Yaakov says he says what a person should make sure to do is not to give a coin to the Arnaki shel tzedakah, to the Arnaki of tzedakah, unless someone like Rabbi Chaim ben Trajan is running the tzedakah fund. The person should only give to such a tzedakah fund that's being run by someone like Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan. So therefore the problem is how can we say before what should you do? You give Anaki shel tzedakah. Here the Gemara is saying you here according to Rabbi Yaakov, you got to make sure you only give to an Anaki shel tzedakah if someone like Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan is in command. So Gemara says keep going. What we're talking about is the Mamani Allah Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan. We're talking about someone like Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan is appointed over it. Is appointed over it. Tosfos points out that obviously we can't mean that it has to be someone who is as great a tzaddik as Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan. Want to know how great Chanina ben Trajan was? It's a whole sugin of the Zara. He was one of the Asara Malchus, right? Who were killed by the Romans. That's is it there? Really? Okay. Right. Right. I mean, one of his. He's quoted there. What does it say? Chanina ben Trajan. Anyway, okay, right. Right. So, I mean, if you just look at that beginning of that Tosfos there at the top of the Omid, right? Tosfos says, Pirush Ne'eman Kamoso. It doesn't mean a tzaddik. Aval tzaddik kamoso lo. It doesn't mean as righteous as Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan. The Gaboim of tzedakah at the time of the Amiroim, it weren't as great as Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan himself. It means that it has to be as trustworthy. The key thing is ne'emonus. There was an instant on he had a whole situation where he said that the Purim money had mixed up with the tzedakah money. I divided them to the aniyim. He was extremely trustworthy. And that is the type of gabed tzedakah one needs. That's the quality one needs to be a gabed tzedakah. And you bring Gemora goes on to bring another example from Shabbos, a similar thing where we say like so and so. It doesn't mean entirely like it. It means in a certain aspect, certain respect. Right. Okay. Any questions on this, or we can move forward? Okay. Everyone right?
So why are we not concerned about the fact that we only have to deal with the administrators of the fund feeling embarrassed in front of them?
So the question is, why are we not concerned that Oni has to deal with the administrators of the fund when he's embarrassed to receive?
Yes, to the extent that that's even greater than
That's interesting because
what was the question? Sorry.
The question is that why is it a higher level to give to the Anarchy Shel Tzedakah, right? Where the Anarchy Shel Tzedakah, you don't know who the giver and recipient is, personally. But at the end of the day, there's a level of embarrassment for the Oni in the sense that he has to go and knock on the door of the people administrating the fund and not apply for the funds. But it's still, I suppose it's because you're taking away, you're still making it impersonal. That's the point. You know, that's what you're gaining for Anarchy Shel Tzedakah. You know, there's a middle person, so there's no connection between giver and recipient at all.
How else would you do it?
No. The question is, isn't it more a kovadik for the Oni that he doesn't even need to go and knock on anyone's door? He just finds the envelope under his door. But it seems to be not, because that he still knows that someone's giving him the.
But I'm saying this, you can't get around that.
Yeah, you have to get it in some way.
Yeah.
blockchain.
Well, I'm not sure that existed at
that. So I don't know if anyone else has any other suggestions, but I think it's you're taking away that's right. In some way, it has to happen. Yeah. I mean, one thing as I said, like even till our relatively recent past, we have to sort of get our heads around the fact that the level of poverty we're talking about was very, very close to saving someone's life. People who had no food for the next meal, literally, if you did not provide that for them, they wouldn't survive. I mean, this is the type of levels of poverty that we're talking about as well. That was just a fact of life, just everywhere. Yeah. Exactly. Absolutely. Which is that beautiful lashon there in the Rambam. Exactly. Yeah. He says, yeah. Right. Okay. So the Gemara carries on. Moshe Rabbeinu said in front of Hashem, Rabbonu Shalom, Bamet Torah Keren Yisrael. With what shall be uplifted the horn of Yisrael? In other words, how can we uplift them completely? Amalei said to him, B'chi sisa. With ki tisa. What does that mean? Ki tisa is the beginning of the introduction to giving machatzis hashekel, and they had to give by giving the shkalim. That's what uplifts them and elevates them in every way. If you look at Rashi, we missed out Rashi. The mitzvah means the tashmish before tashmish. Amalei b'chi sisa in bosel or seis rosham ba'agbo. If you're going to lift up their heads, kachim kofelet stocker, take from them a redemption, a kofelet stocker. That's the power of ki sisa. There is the Maharsha says here. Let me just find. There's this Maharsha. He says like this. That's right. He says there's a difference between the word ki sisa and the other uses of this phrase. So, for example, in Bamidbar you have su'es rosh, count, right, which is in the plural form. Here it's ki sisa and it's in the singular. Okay. That's where the Gemara is getting this from, right? Rabbi Birnbaum is picking up here on the nuance in the language, in the fact that it says ki sisa, you, when you lift up. We translate it as count, but literally means to lift up, right? And it must be therefore that the Gemara is understanding the pasuk as a response to a question posed by Moshe Rabbeinu. Are you with me? Yeah. In other words, that's where the implied question is. The Moshe Rabbeinu was asking, Bamet Torah Keren Yisrael, how can I uplift them? How can they be uplifted? Hashem answered, Ki sisa, when you count, okay? Through them giving through here not meaning the counting means we were focusing on what they gave. Through giving to the Mishkan, they become uplifted from all other nations. Okay, that's the idea. That's the key sissa, is meaning it's implying there was a response to Moshe Rabbeinu's own question. That's what's going on here. I think the Maharal says a similar thing. He says, where is it? Yeah. No, the Maharal talks about the fact that what tzedakah does. He says there's two aspects to tzedakah. Tzedakah is koine Chaim, he says, acquires life, acquire life through tzedakah. And the second one, and that's similar to what we saw before, the idea is it saves in Misa Meshum and everything else, right? You acquire life. The second mile of tzedakah is that the person who gives tzedakah is uplifted, is elevated. That's the key sissa. When you give, you're uplifted. Why? He says like this, beautiful words. What does a person who gives tzedakah, what does he do? He influences in a positive way the recipient. By definition, if you can have a positive impact on someone else, you become a giver. What happens is you are by definition uplifted. A person is uplifted, is elevated through becoming a positive influence on someone else. That's what tzedakah is. Tzedakah by definition is, by giving, I'm uplifting someone else. Who's elevated? That's the give, right? That's the v'nosnu. Yeah, this, what's it called? That wonderful word. There we have the palindrome, that's right. Right? That's you give and you receive. That's the idea, right? So you're uplifted in that way. Yeah.
There's a great TED talk. I don't know if you've seen it.
Which one?
A TED talk. They did an experiment.
I know what they are. Don't worry, they're good.
Yeah, an experiment about satisfaction, and they basically proved amongst Gentiles that people get greater satisfaction when they give to others. That they did social experiments with basketball teams and other teams,
right,
where they could share with others and actually buy someone else something. There's great satisfaction. So it's just the concept right. is within the Gentile world as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we also had a worldwide universal social proof of that at this time last year, right? Because I think one of the reasons why you saw so many examples, and this was a worldwide phenomenon of people wanting to give, was people found that by giving they were able to uplift themselves out of what was quite a sort of miserable situation where we're all isolated and everything else. Many people found this, just the proof of this, just through. It was just there. If you give, you suddenly found, wow, I feel better about my situation because I'm making a difference. I'm doing something positive for someone else, right? So, yeah. Says the Gemara carries on. Amar Bivo, another statement. No, it's not. Another statement. Shlomo ben David. They asked Shlomo ben David at Heichon Kocha Shel Tzedakah. How far does the power of tzedakah go? How far does it go? He said to him, go and look at what David, my father, explained. He said, Pizar Nosan Levyonim, he scatters and gives to the poor, Tzidkoso Emedes Load. His tzedakah stands forever. Karno Charim B'Kovod. His keren, his horn, in the sense of that, it's uplifted. Torah will be exalted B'Kovod with honor. Rabbi Abba says the source is from here. How far it goes, because it says he will dwell in lofty places, mitzdos sloim, mitzudos sloim, miskovo, so the fortresses of the rocks, it's his exalted place. And who is Lachmei Nosan Memov, the one who gives his bread to the poor. Lachmei Nosan, he's given his bread. Memov ne'emonim, his water is faithful. Matzah, what is the reason? What is the reason? Where do you get that from? Someone who is, how does a person achieve that status of dwelling in an uplifted and exalted place and in the fortresses of the rocks? Mishum de lachmo nosan, because he's given his bread, umeimov ne'emonim, and his water is faithful, is faithful. But water's faithful, meimov ne'emonim, I think it means he does the right thing with it, I think. In other words, it's faithful in the sense that he's giving it to for using it and giving it for a good purpose. I think, unless you have another.
What's the water? The significance of the water?
I think it's bread and water, giving bread and water. I think that's how
basics.
Yeah. I think so. Unless you have another, I don't know if anyone. Yeah, I think that's what I think so. It's referring to bread and water. Yeah. Rabbi Avo, a third statement of Rabbi Avo, or this is Shlomo es Shlomo, the Al Shlomo is who is someone who gets to merit the world to come. Anyone who's neged zakin of kovod. That means to say, if you look at Rashi says kovod zakin keneged zakin of kovod. Osam shecholken lem kovod b'olam hazeh. Those who they give kovod to in this world, machmas chochmas ziknosom, because of the wisdom, the country says elderliness of their wisdom. I mean, the chochmas ziknosom means that they've managed to acquire a wisdom. So the point is, that's what it means neged zaken of kovod. If a person receives kovod in this world because of the level of chokhmah they've achieved, that's a person who has a portion, has a share in the world to come. And the Gemora brings a proof for this from an incident which occurred. Rav Yosef, brother of Yeshua, Rav Yosef, the son of Yeshua, cholash, he became ill, and Ingid, he seemed to have gone into a coma and slipped into a coma, and he had a near-death experience. Amalei avua, his father said to him, "My chozis, what did you see in your when you had this experience?" Amalei said to him, "Olam hafach roisi, I saw an upside-down world. I saw those who were above in this world, low down there, and people who were low down here, high up there." In other words, it didn't follow the social status that they may have achieved in this world did not translate into the same level of social status and class or whatever in the world to come. Amalei said to him, "Olam bara roisa, you have seen a clear world. How do we look like there?" Amalei said to him, just as we were important here, so too we were important there. Because, and this is the proof for what we were saying, is that he is saying we are honored in this world because of the Torah we've learned, and that's replicated in that world, right? There, it's exactly as there. It's the same level in that sense. The Shomati, I heard they were saying, praiseworthy is the one who has come here, and his learning is in his hand. It's always good when you have something that's been reinforced with a song, because everyone knows more about that, right? So this is what I heard them say. There's a marsha on this. Before we go on to the next line, the marsha says, a second. Yeah, interesting. What does it mean? The Talmudo biyodo. It says one of these phrases. Asher misha bolakan. The Talmudo biyodo. What does that mean? Talmudo biyodo. So we usually would translate that as remembers the learning, right? No, Talmudo biyodo. A person who's Talmudo biyodo means you ask a question and it's like you know the answer, right? That's what Talmudo biyodo means. There's one line in the Marsha. The Marsha is Yesh lefarish ki ikar alimud v'hashanase b'roshem. The main limud and that which has an impact and an effect, hu alimud habo miksivas yad. That it comes from writing it down. That's Talmudo biyodo, person who's made notes. Interesting, no? Ashal kei nikru ha'chachomim sofrim. The chachomim are called sofrim. You want to remember something, you write it down, you make notes. It's very fascinating. So he says that's what it means, Talmudo biyodo. He's come there with Talmudo biyodo. He's made notes. Literally, yeah. That's what he says. Okay. Now, and he carries on with another. He hadn't finished. Shamati also heard him say, "Harugi Malchus." Those who were killed by the Harugi Malchus means those who were killed by the Romans. Ein kober. That's what it seems to mean. Ein. Well, see, it doesn't mean that. Ein kober echol lamed mechitzosam. No creature could stand. No one can stand in their level. No one has achieved their level. Maninu, who are these people? Says more. It ain't Rabbi Kiva Chaveirov. You're going to say it's Rabbi Kiva and his companions, just because they were Harugi Malchus and nothing else. Pshita, obviously, right? They will obviously be on that level anyway. They were the greatest Talmidei Chachomim some of them ever lived, right? With even that, Ela Harugi Lud, right? It must be the Harugi Lud. Who were the Harugi Luds? We'll see. Rashi will explain to us who the Harugi Lud were. You see Rashi, it's where it says Elyonim Lamato. It is just about a bit more than a third of the way down. Elyonim Lamato. What does it mean? Those who are high up, are low down there. It means Osam Shehem Elyonim Kan, those who are high up there, here, sorry, who are high up here, yes, Machmas Osham, because their wealth or whatever, Isi Shom Shem Lamata, I saw there that they were below, the Sachtonim Lamalo, and I also saw Isi Aniyim, I saw paupers, Shem Beinenu amongst us, Shfolim Shom, Shem Beinenu Shfolim, the lower here, Shom Isim Chashuvim, there I saw that they were important. I think that what the Gemara is trying to say is that there's no proof of social status being any proof of status there. Va'anon Bali Torah, how are we the Bali Torah there? How are we considered that? So he answered, just as we are here important and respected, so too we are respected over there. Harugi Malchus, the Gemara asks, was it only the fact that they were murdered al Kiddush Hashem? That's what puts them at that high level. You know, they had many other reasons to be. So therefore, the Gemara says it's not referring to them; it's referring to Harugei Lud, which is Lulinus or Papus Achim. Lulinus and Papus were brothers. Shaharagum Turinus Harosha Blutkia. Turinus. I don't know who Turinus was. Is it? That's the thing. There's two different versions in Rashi. You've got Turnus Rufus. That's interesting. Okay, well, that's interesting because there's a note here on the side changed to Turinus. Anyway, whoever it was, there was a decree to destroy the Jews. Al-Shanim says, Bas Melech Haruga. They found the daughter of a king, a princess, killed. They suspected the Jewish people of doing it. These brothers got up when they said, why are you complaining about the Jews? We killed her. And these were people who were they owned up to the murder, and they were called the Harugei Lud. Now these Harugei Lud were then killed on account of that, it seems. And he said that no one could be in their level. And it's interesting. The question is really, I think there's more Turnus. The question is, were these people Jewish? Were they? Lulinus and Papus. No, because it says Malachem al Yisrael. Right? Firstly, the names sound very Greek, but that's yeah. Yeah, I think they were. They were. They weren't Jewish? Is that what it says there?
It just says two, doesn't it? It says two righteous brothers.
1 second. Let's just have a look at this.
It says to save their people, two righteous brothers step forward.
Yeah, Rashi says Sadiqim. Rashi in Tana says Sadiqim Gemurim Hoyu. They were completely righteous.
But from that note, it implies they were Jewish. Well, that you read, Jeremy.
Well, why?
What? It says to save their people. It says
yeah. So it's basically.
Us.
Let's go on and make 1 second. I presume they were. He would only very interesting. And anyway, the question is really, are you allowed to do that? And what did they do? That's the big question here as well, right? No, but they gave their own lives up. Are you allowed to do that?
Well, like suicide, what do you mean?
Yeah, that's what they did, didn't they? They said unless they actually killed her, but it doesn't look like they did. It says they said,
And if they were non-Jews, they said they have to do it?
No, not necessarily. No, not necessarily. It's just interesting if the Gemara is saying is putting out the story of these people who happen not to be Jewish. That could be whether they were Jewish or not. But also the question is whether just halachically are they allowed to do it? It was just saying that they did it and therefore they after the fact. Yeah. Yeah. The whole story there is because when Tyrannus wanted to kill them, He said to them, he says, if you're from the people of Hanani, Mishael, Azariah, your God should come and save you as he saved Hanani, Mishael, Azariah. You know, they were thrown into the furnace, right? Gemora, are you? They were great tzaddikim. There was a miraculous time. They were righteous people. Russia Hedger too. Talking about this general. He's a hedger. He's an ordinary person. You can't do a miracle through him. And he says we are liable to be killed. And if you don't kill us, then Hashem can do it many other ways. Anyway, he killed them. There is, but either way, it's just very fascinating that the Gemara pulls out here this story of the fact the Harugi Lut. So this is just want to finish with this idea. I think Chaim Shmulevitz talks about this somewhere. 1 second. What does he say? Soften Zion. Yeah, that's right. Right. Beautiful, very important. Absolutely fantastic. He said on Erev Sukkot, Tovshin Lamed Dalet. Now, what English year was Tovshin Lamed Dalet? Someone help me out here. I'm very bad at this. I'm very bad at maths, and anyway, especially the dates. You know? We're Tovshin Pei Aleph. We got accountancy also.
47 years ago, so that would be 1974.
Okay, but Erev Sukkot 73. No. Yom Kippur War. No. It is, no?
So 1973, yes.
It's Yom Kippur War, right? Yom Kippur. So he wrote this piece. It was obviously a shmooze to the yeshiva during Yom Kippur War. Erev Sukkot. Right? So it was during the war, right? Okay. And he talks about learning Torah, and he talks about various other things. And he talks about Torah. He talks about the Eitzah Shniya is tefillah, davening. Okay. And then he says this. Two fundamental points. The second one is about not to be afraid, because that's the greatest danger in war. We know the psukim about not being afraid, right? And he says, listen to this. He says, he brings the Gemora here, this Gemara. No one can come close to the Harugi Lud. Why? Because they gave their lives for other Jews. This is what I say. He was mashgiach of mir. Those who are risking their lives to save us. He's talking about the idea, right? He says, no one can come close to what they're doing. No one's coming anywhere near them. There is no limit to how much we should daven for them. He brings a medrash that if someone opens the door for you, your nefesh is chayav to him. Obligation that we have is without any limit. Isn't that beautiful? It's this Gemara. This is the story. They go, no one can come close. Those who risk their lives to save other Jews by joining the IDF. This was dark days. He was talking in the Chemes Yom Kippurim, but even so, that's a powerful idea. So that is where we'll leave it for today on that note. As I say, if you want the references in the new editions, it's on page Tov Nun Zion. It's a piece worth remembering. It's a little small paragraph, and very, very powerful words. Yeah. Good. We'll carry on next week. Thank you all for joining on.
Thank you.
As well. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Have a good evening. We need more voices like that nowadays, right? That it was